The name of my talk was maximizing our linguistic resources in the ESL classroom. And during my presentation at TOSCON, I made the argument that we should maximize our linguistic resources, and as policymakers and ESL instructors, we should use and or allow for the use of other languages in our classrooms and base our practice and policy on the evidence coming out of our field, pointing to the effective and cognitive benefits of a judicious or limited amount of other language use, languages other than English in the classroom. So I make the argument that this is part of a broader reconceptualization of our students as multilingual and multi-competent users of English, as opposed to seeing them from a deficit position as deficient English users. I presented my research from a Brazilian context where I looked at why teachers allowed their students to use Portuguese or used Portuguese when teaching their students English, and all of the multiple reasons they allowed for other language use, languages other than English, in this case Portuguese, and why they limited the Portuguese use. And I get this similar questions from a Canadian audience all the time, which is, well, we're in an ESL context, so what can we do when we have all of these different languages in our classroom, and at times we don't know any language other than English, or at times we may share another language. So I got questions like, how can we operationalize this? What can we actually do to promote sort of this vision of students as multilingual and multi-competent users? And I gave various suggestions, including allowing for, if two students share the same tongue, let's say they share Mandarin as their first language, allowing them to scaffold by sharing sort of a quick translation, a quick explanation of an instruction, or what have you, to allow them to complete the task beyond, in the using both of those languages, English and Mandarin, as opposed to having an English-only policy, which I argue is misguided based on research in our field. And another question I got was how it's difficult to know when students are on task when they're using another language if I don't know that language. So how much should I allow it and how much should I limit it? And my comment to that, or my response to that, was this is very challenging as teachers, and I think we all know these are challenging moments when we allow these other languages, but it's part of this project of reconceptualizing these languages as potentially beneficial. And I think the best answer is look to your experience and reflect on what works and what doesn't in the classroom. And I think this is a good move for policymakers to listen to teachers as to what they feel is effective and ineffective in the classroom. And also, that only works if teachers are reflective about their practice. So reflecting on what worked, what didn't work. I gave another example of how to invite other languages into the classroom when teaching English, and that is building on Jim Cummins' work regarding bilingual identity text. So allowing students to create a dual language text in English on one side, and let's say their first language is Farsi on the other side, and them being able to sort of reflect on the differences between these languages and express themselves in a much greater sense than if it were done solely in English, in the target language.